when it comes to, getting on a diet, working out, those types of things. And most of the people I work with, that's a terrible goal. I got to correct that. That's going to bug me. So we got a goal. Most people will state their goal as, I, I want to lose weight. And it might be like, I want to get healthy and lose weight. I want to, feel better and lose weight. I want to have more energy and lose weight, but that's the goal. So this is our starting point. This is where most people, and it's important. You got to have a starting point. What's the starting point? And then everything else branches off from that. This is a mistake. And I'm going to tell you why it's a mistake right now, because you don't want to lose weight. What you want to do, your actual goal is, I want to lose body fat. That's your goal. That's what you want. And then as a bonus, and build or at least maintain muscle as much as possible. And I'm going to explain why this is important in a bit. So keep watching here. This is the key here that so many people miss, but they miss it because they go to here. They might do a certain diet, a fast, something that's calorie restrictive or something that's extreme, and they lose weight. But the problem is they're losing muscle and fat at almost the same rate. It's just going down and it's just going down. So the issue with that, and I'll get into it, but essentially, this is what happens to a lot of people with extreme diets. They're trying to lose as much as they can. They're doing it with sometimes competitions, so weight loss competitions. We get all the info, and that's the thing. Like someone who's doing like keto or a competition, or anything like that, or a specific diet, or carnivore, or extreme fasts, they will tell you how well it's going. They'll say, hey, this is awesome, loving what I'm doing, everything's great. But it'll be within like the first month. The key is to ask them at the 6-month mark, and usually that tells a different story. And let me explain why. And it's nothing against, like, people do it all the time. It's nothing against them. You're trying to do a good thing. You're trying to lose weight. You try different things. When you try carnivore, the next year you try a crazy fast, the next year you try a cleanse, the next year you try something else. It's because that's what we're exposed to. And here's the thing: you want to be able to do something. For the sweet spot is this. It's not. Well, let's talk about first how long people usually do things for. They usually do it for 30 days, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more, give or take. That's how long they usually do it for. Most people say, "Oh, if I did it for 3 months, that would be great. That's a step in the right direction. That's good." The real sweet spot you got to get to is 6 months. That tells the true story. 6 months, if you want to lock things in and you're doing it for a year, then you're solid. You have behavior change. You have everything you need. That's what you want. You want to build the habits. You want to build the lifestyle. It's not what you're doing, it's who you are. So that's the year point. But 6 months to a year. So let's call it 6 months. So with the 6 months, the question you got to ask yourself, and most people probably have never heard of this, is how much pain do you want to go through in 6 months? That's the question. Like how difficult do you want this to be? How miserable do you want to be? So 6 months, right? For some people, that's a long time. Some people, that's a short time. So how much pain? That's the question you want to ask yourself. And if we think about the different things you could be doing, over this end is really restrictive, and this end is kind of, we'll call it comfort zone. It's the same. And then this is in the middle. There's lots of stuff over here you can do. Sorry. There's lots of things over on this end you can do, right? There's all these different things. There's diets, there's the fad diets, there's cleanses, there's, like I said, carnivore, keto. There used to be like Atkins. There's all these things. All those things have in common. Like we go keto, carnivore, Atkins. My writing is pretty bad. I'll have to clean that up. Atkins, let's say like, different fasts. What do all these things have in common? They restrict calories in a certain way, right? So like we're restricting mostly carbs here, carbs here, carbs here. We're restricting the window we can eat here. So when it comes to restricting calories and there's ways to do it. You can restrict the window. I'm not going to eat after 8 p.m. I'm not going to eat between when I go to bed, 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. lunchtime, right? You can do longer fasts, you can shorter fasts. So that's restricting the time window. Then the other one is types of food groups. So I'm not going to eat carbs, right? I'm just going to be protein and fat, right? You're taking away a ton of calories that you're probably normally eating. So you're naturally putting yourself in a calorie deficit. So, but these all things are outside your normal lifestyle, right? All this stuff over here. Let's clean this up a bit. All those fad things, restricted things, short-term things, they work. Don't get me wrong. They work. And they work for a reason, because you're going to be in a calorie deficit. There's no like secret thing that's going on there. If you eat less food drastically, you'll lose weight. You watch like Survivor shows, right? Survivor is one of the shows we watch. My kids liked it. They like the competitions, but Survivor. And then what's the other one? It's like Lone Survivor. And there's another one, Naked and Afraid. That's a great one. All these people in these shows, they lose weight. But they also show like, hey, these people lost X amount of weight. They lost X amount of muscle, essentially. So their weight goes drastically down, but they're stripping muscle and fat at the same time, like drastically goes down. So you watch, they'll survive for 30 days, they'll lose 36 pounds. And that's restrictive, that's extreme. So that's the extreme end over here. So we got to ask ourselves, not only how much pain do we want to go through and how much we think we can go through, but how do we transition from fat loss? So we start at fat loss. This is this end over here. Like if we're going fat loss here, we do that. That's step one. And then to kind of make it really simple, macro, step two is body recomp, which I'll explain what that is, / maintenance. A lot of people use the word maintenance. I don't like it because you don't want to just hang out and maintain. Body recomp means you're going to stay at a certain weight. So let's say you lost 20 pounds. So you're 220 and you got to 200. Now you're at 200 and your body fat percentage is, who knows, 18%, let's say 18%. The body recomp says, okay, we're going to stay in a range here. Let's say, 197 to 203. But what we want is the body fat to go down and the muscle to stay the same or go up. That's what we want. So we're kind of in that range. Fat's going down, muscle's going up. And then you're improving your total body fat percentage and your lean mass. Maintenance, sometimes I think people think, oh, they get to 200 and they just stay there no matter what. I think you should still be trying to improve your health, not chasing like crazy low body fat percentage, but just a little bit more. You set up something where you're getting a little bit better body recomp there, whether your body fat's down and your muscle's going up and you're able to do it sustainably. So that's the question. We want to transition from that, step one, to step two, right? We just talked about what that is. This is the losing weight, and this is we'll call it maintenance. We'll say it maintenance. So we got to transition from that. If we are on this end of the spectrum over here, when it comes to how much pain we're going through, and we have to transition back to something closer to here, closer to our comfort zone, but not quite our comfort zone because we're a new person, that makes it very difficult. Keep doing this. Then they go back to their old habits. They've lost muscle and fat, which makes them burn less calories at rest. They're less efficient. So what happens? Their weight comes down. Then they hit that point of no return, and then the weight skyrockets and then yo-yos up. So what do we want to do instead? We want to think about, okay, I'm not doing this line here. As long as I want to do this, I want to do it the right way. How much do I want to lose? Okay, this is the guideline. This is how far I want to get. That makes total sense. You want to set it up in a way that you give yourself a long enough runway that you're not going through too much pain, but you're obviously going through a little bit of pain from here and there. And I'll explain how to do that the right way. So you want to be about right here. That's your sweet spot. But sometimes you're going to be here, sometimes you'll be here, but you'll kind of swing back and forth. So what that means is it's an easier transition back to baseline. You're not drastically changing everything. The question I ask everyone is, if I ask you to do something and you tell me, I don't think I could do this in the next 20 years, we're not going to spend the time and energy to build that habit, because habits are very difficult to build. So if you spend the time and energy to build a habit that is not sustainable, you're setting yourself up for failure 100%. So that's the idea. That's how much pain I want to get through. Now, here's the secret. There was a secret. This is what I do with my clients. We'll do sprints. So we'll do weeks of intensity. So we have the plan, and it's different for everyone. And I could talk about that as well. We'll go 2 weeks, and the word I like to use is dialed in. And then we'll go 1 week of, just kind of cruising. We're cruising. And the reason we do that, is that how you spell cruise, or is Z? Let's see. This thing's telling me it's not. I guess I'll spell it like this. Cruise. The key here is that this is intensity up here. So intensity goes up. We're following the plan, very diligent. But you get to a point where you get burnout. So we pull back, and this is cruising. Cruising means you hit your minimums. So you hit minimums. It doesn't mean rock bottom. It means, okay, I'm going to get my steps in, I get my hydration in. My workouts are going to get, they're not going to be crazy. And I'm going to kind of eat maybe a little bit closer to maintenance when it comes to my calories. So I'm not going to be in that huge calorie deficit that I would be over here, which we're not. We're going to be in about a 500 calorie deficit per day. But during this week, we might drop that down to like 200. So nice and easy. That's one way to do it. The other way, I don't really need to draw it out, is if someone I know is a little bit more dialed in and they're a little bit more high energy at a certain point, we'll do 3 weeks of a sprint. So 3+1. So that's our four-week block, and that's a month. So you do 3 high intensity. This is cruise, and then it's nice and easy after that. So what are the goals here when we're trying to do this? So we're doing it for 6 months. Let me get this back. The goal on average, you want to lose about 1 pound per week. That's the sweet spot. You might have some weeks that are higher, some weeks that are lower. The average we're looking at is probably the month. That's what I really care about, is what did you get to in a month? Because you might have 2 weeks in a row where you don't lose any weight. And then the third week, you might lose 2.5 pounds. It's just the way it goes. A weight graph would look like this: up, down. I'm going to mess with your head. Down, mess, up, down, 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 down. That's the weight graph. That's how it looks. So these are days. And then if we created one that's a week, it'd be like this kind of, and then if we did another one that was a month, over 6 months, it would just kind of be like that. So that's important. It's important to zoom out. Okay, so we want to lose about 1 pound a week. How do we do that? So 1 pound a week off your baseline. So, and don't take these numbers exact. I'm just going to make them up. If you're, let's see if I can open this. Let's just say, example, you're get that back. You are 200 pounds and you want to get to 180. This is eating at calories. Let's say to stay at 200 pounds. Let's just say it's 2,400 calories. That's going to keep you at 200. So that's eating at maintenance, essentially. It's eating what your body needs to maintain its weight. You want to get into roughly a 500 calorie deficit. So you would eat closer to 1,900, but this would be a plus or minus 10% variance. So there's windows there. So you can go up above that 10%, or you can go down below it. We don't want to go too far down, because then we're starving ourselves too much. We don't want to go too far up, because then we're not really in that deficit anymore. It's kind of eating that away. But that's where we want to be. So that's how we want to think about that. Now with that, so let's say we have that 1,900 calories. We want 30 to 35% to be from protein. Okay. The reason why is this: protein builds muscle. I'm running out of room here. Builds muscle. It's for recovery and helps you feel fuller longer. You get the idea. So it's a tactic we use because it has a lot of positives behind it. So when I set someone up with goals, I just set them with 2 targets. We're tracking everything. We're seeing everything. We're seeing calories, protein, carbs, fat. But I want them to understand that they only have to focus on 2 things: calories and their protein goal, which I set up for them automatically. So they actually get their target for that. Now, the protein goal is the same thing. I give them a range. We start with a target number, then they get a range. So actually, I'm going to delete this too. Let's get rid of this. So when we're doing that, and I'll kind of explain the reason too, that the final reason protein is so important. I do a little bit of numbers here. How did that go up? Anyways, that's out of there. So there we go. So we got our protein. So protein, I guess I could just write P. That's simpler. You guys don't have to watch my awful handwriting. P. So every 1 gram has 4 calories. So carbs, 1 gram, 4 calories. That's what it's equal to. 1 gram, 9 calories. So we'll do some simple math here. So I eat 100 calories protein. That's times by 4. I eat 100 grams of protein times by 4. And that's obviously 400. This would be 400. And if I did the same thing here, if I ate 100 grams of fat, that would be 900. So I hope that makes sense, and that's eye-opening for people here in terms of what we're trying to do. Now, here's the secret with protein. Every 100 calories, roughly, consumed, you eat, you burn 20 to 30 calories through digestion. This does not happen at this highest rate with calorie or with carbs or with fat. So we become a little bit more of a heat machine here by consuming adequate levels, not high, adequate levels of protein. So we can eat the same, 100 calories of carbs, 100 calories of protein, but this is actually less because we're burning 20 to 30 through digestion. Okay, so that's why we tracked calories, which are king. Calories are king. That's my crown. That has to do with weight, total weight. So if you just tracked calories and you're trying to lose weight, you lose weight. If you had yourself in a calorie deficit. Protein and total macros percentages overall has to do with body fat and lean mass. Okay, so calories matter, but protein also matters too. So how do we fit the rest of them in? Let's break that down, clear this up. So we know we want to eat, a certain amount of calories based off of, and you can just jump online, there's calorie count or weight loss calculators out there. You put your age, put some information around your activity levels. It'll spit out how much you should eat based off of that. If you want to lose half a pound, pound and a half, 2 pounds, don't do 2 pounds. It's very enticing. You see the 2 pounds, don't do it. But how do we fit in protein, carbs, and fat? And the way I do it, that's me trying to look up how to use my free app for drawing. There we go. So protein, carbs, and fat. And this is how I set it up for my clients. We have 2 types of meals. We have an anytime meal, and then we have a post-workout meal. And we don't want to overcomplicate it because we don't want to go through that much pain, right? We want it to be simple. So the key here is you're not just eating a set amount of carbs every day or fat every day or protein every day. It's going to fluctuate. We have a 10% variance. But if we looked at a plate and we said, okay, this is our any plate, and this anytime means most of the meals you're going to eat, pretty much all the meals. The post-workout is going to be meals pre-workout, post-workout. Let's say you're playing a sport. It can be before the sport, after the sport, but I'll explain what it is. This is going to be, quarter of your plate is going to be protein. And then about 3 thumbs, 2 to 3 thumbs is fat. And then the rest of your plate here is going to be actually, I call it the rainbow. I keep pulling that up. The rainbow. This is going to be veggies. This is called high volume eating. So these are fibrous carbohydrates, our veggies eating the color. There's still energy in them. There's their source of energy. Anytime you eat food, there's energy there. When we eat high volume eating, it means you can actually eat more food, but you're getting less calories. So they're high nutrient, but not calorie dense. So when it comes to different styles of eating, we just follow a 2-plate rule of protein, a little bit of fat, and the fat could be olive oil, dressing, nuts, seeds, avocado, really easy, simple. And then high nutrient foods that are color. We're thinking any color. And I tell people, don't overthink it. Just get some greens, get some veggies in you. That's going to be probably, 2 to 3 meals a day, depending on if you're having a snack. And then the post-workout is going to look like this. Our protein goes up. So we want to recover. We want to build lean muscle. We want to do that in and around a workout. The timing is not too strict, but we just want that meal to be that meal after we work out. And then we're going to have veggies and fruit can go here, and fruit is fine here too as well. Like people say, I don't eat fruit because of the sugar. It's fine. Have berries, blueberries, those types of things. And then we're going to add in maybe a serving or two of starchy carbs. So those are the true carbs that most people think about. Carbs are your energy source. There's nothing wrong with carbs. You need carbs to function. Your brain needs carbs. But you're more primed after a workout to use these energy dense carbs. And they're starchy carbs, but we also call them smart carbs. So yes, they're breads, rice, pasta, sweet potatoes, all those things. We try to keep them here as much as possible. So we just flip back and forth between these two meals. That's the key there. Let me just erase this. So those are your two meals. Now, the question I get all the time is, so you're saying I can't have any carbs at all, those starchy carbs or those smart carbs over here. No, that's not the case at all. We just want to structure the day to understand that we want most of them here. You might have a very high activity day and you're having more carbs at breakfast than you had in a serving. But that's the key. Your body can use this appropriately instead of storing it over here when you're doing nothing. If you have a day where you're very sedentary and you're sitting at a desk all day, right? I'm going to try to draw a chair here. That's a great desk. You're at your computer and you're barely moving, right? Just sitting here. You're obviously not burning a lot of calories. Most of your meals want to be like that. If you're out playing sports and you're working out, which you should be working out, the meal after it is like a reward. You get to reward yourself and you earned it. So that's how we set that up. That's the key there when it comes to the full breakdown of setting up a system that is not that painful. It's not that complicated. And that's the key. You can do some crazy stuff in the beginning and get, lose, maybe 15 pounds, 10, 15 pounds, which you don't want to do in 30 days. But that's not the goal. Your goal is not to lose, let's say you did it for 2 months and you lost 25 pounds in 2 months or more. And that's not the goal. The goal is to, let's say you're 200 and you want to get to 180. The goal is to lose a pound per week over whatever time you need to take, because it might slow down, it might speed up. And then the goal is to get to your step 2. And you're better off getting to your step 2, doing it not slowly, but appropriately, and doing it in a way where you maintain lean muscle mass or try to build it. And I've seen lots of people build it. I've helped lots of people build it at the same time and get to that step 2 in a much better position where you're strong, not exhausted or burnt out, better energy, sleep, recovery. We bring all those things together. You do it like that. That's the way you want to do it. There's no need to rush it. And I know it's human nature to rush things, but if you rush it, you're going to go from here to goal very quickly, fast, but then you're going to go right back. There's a very high likely chance that you're going to go right back to your starting point. That's what you want to avoid 100%. We do it once, and then you live your life. So I hope that helped. Excuse my writing. I'll work on that. But if you have any questions,